Oh, hello. Welcome. Now that we have covered the one excellent, the one truly legitimate governance system and excellent world strategic doctrine, is it time for our excellent world constitution? Let us first cover some brief contextual information on what a constitution is and some relevant history on the world constitution, which again is not my idea by this parallel humanity UN think tank, but exists already since the 1940s, and more specifically after World War II, where Albert Einstein proposed a supranational government, aka world government, which prohibits nuclear weaponry to prevent nuclear conflict and thereby nuclear war, as well as conventional war, and opted for national freedom in policy, culture, and economics, where responsible along with. This includes an executive pillar, legislative pillar, judiciary pillar, and media pillar. Federally constructed, where an executive leader is elected, not a centralized government or dictatorship. In the peace and prosperity of everyone's human individuals' human needs, not just a few. Technically, does the idea of world government exist for longer amongst global federalists? But Albert Einstein was the most well-known proponent and officially proposed the idea towards the United Nations. To keep the context simple here, do we just go with that? Now, unto the world constitution. Robert Hutchins, a philosopher during the 1940s, created, along with an academic team, a pre-official version of a world constitution. It typically outlines the powers, functions, and responsibilities of global institutions and establishes mechanisms for decision-making, conflict resolution, and the protection of human rights. The aim is to create a framework that promotes unity, justice, and sustainability on a global scale. As you understand, does the world constitution reflect our collective desire for world peace and world prosperity to us all? There have been some problems in the establishment of the world constitution, namely, figuring out how to minimize the risk of global despotism. In other words, not falling into a centralized global power in the hands of a few, but reliably remain in the hands of all. Figuring out how to minimize the risk of overreach, powerful organizations not being able to interfere in human beings, their human needs selfishly. Then there's the requirement for solving the vulnerability of political ignorance. Political ignorance leads to sub-excellent decision-making. In other words, unreliable, inaccurate decision-making, ineffective and inefficient in execution. Then next is there the potential issue of emigration elimination to solve. People not being able to vote by feet anymore, which means people cannot express their dissatisfaction to the direction of a country is taking by emigrating anymore. There are a few more criticisms, but these are the most important to solve. So let's solve them here. These criticisms look at our world and thereby its constitution from the perspective of peoples in our world and the ancient governance systems of democracy, autocracy, etc. You see, while the perspective of looking at our world from the perspective of peoples is not inherently wrong, it is simply incomplete. Our world, thus the world we all human beings share in past, present, and future, is our world as Homo sapiens, humanity's world. Peoples is variable, as there were, for example, the ancient Sumerians, Egyptians, and Romans. The ancient Sumerians even speak of, to them, ancient peoples in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Peoples we have little to no archaeological trace of. And when we will have colonized other planets, galactic neighborhood and beyond, will there be new peoples? With their own culture, norms, values, and customs. Wonderful. Do you see? This is not fixed. What is fixed, constant, is that these peoples are always part of us, as whole, humanity. To be perfectly clear, this world of ours is always our world as humanity, then as peoples within. On the other side, are we individually human beings first, then built on top of that, a person? All of us. Well, perhaps a couple of extraterrestrials amongst us, but you get the gist. So, from most singular individual to most encompassing collective, human. And to solve these world constitutional criticisms, do we therefore need to address ourselves as human beings first, in our entirety through we humanity, followed by the addressing of the entire human collective in power over own world, as is logical and reasonable in the purest sense of the phenomenon itself, and as actual collective, not merely words on paper, which consequentially requires the addressing of the individual's ability to present in matters which affects the individual's human needs, or those whom receive loving care, which will be then the actual filling to that collective addressal. Of course, that individual presentation and governance of our world needs to be responsible, And you guessed where this is going. The three theories we covered previously, with now the required inclusion of expert guidance in both governance topics and universal education to make that true collective governance truly responsible. Which of course comes with the collective duty of testing individuals' governance competence. This will allow us to competently and honestly evaluate ideas to our world, and from there to us as peoples, etc. And keep evaluating their realization progress into our world, and alter when and where necessary. But we will need to address ideas in the World Constitution, and the importance of ideas in service to our human needs, not dominating them, which of course is perfectly possible as well. Now can you guess which is the next one?
True leadership?
Yes, true leadership. The general requirements for leadership positions in honesty and competence connected to all the parts of the World Constitution demonstrably, especially when it comes to the higher level positions such as primary executives. By including such explicit to mention general requirements can we test and license positions to individuals who have demonstrated to be truly excellent in honesty and competence. Culture differences aside, there are definitely generals we can collectively agree upon. Generals which are attached to basic morality, such as stealing from others is bad behavior, and not even nearly fitting to someone in a high-level leadership position. Because, simple, if someone is known to steal, then someone cannot be entrusted with resources attached to such positions. In other words, a human being with a poor, bad personality in a high-level position tends to lower the overall quality of the organization that position is attached to. A human being with a great, excellent personality uplifts the overall quality. Period. Then, last but not least, the UGT principle, which makes all the aforementioned practically possible. One, interconnected location. Though non-digital infrastructures will be required as well, such as organizational infrastructures more directly related to the four pillars within them, by approaching the inclusion of infrastructure more generally, opens it to creating a harmonious network of digital and non-digital infrastructures. Though that digital singular interconnected location is 100% included. Let there be no confusion on that. Do you see what is going on here? We are attaching us human beings, us humanity here, to the ideas which make our world, along with the knowledge, wisdom, and insight we carry from our individual expertise. The connect in mutually assured construction, to nurture those ideas in respect to ourselves and human needs, our loved ones, and fellow man. That is what is missing from all constitutional proposals since the 1940s. The true human collective empowerment over the ideas which make our world. From there, are we able to attach human rights related to our human needs to the ideas which make our governments, and by extent, rest of society, as well as the ideas which connect our human world to the natural world around us, and connects thereby to the works and visions of all the aforementioned gentlemen covered in my message. Now, how does this interconnected empowerment of humanity to our world, society, and ideas solve the aforementioned criticisms to the World Constitution, you ask?
Actually, yes. Been wondering about that.
Here they are again. The problem of potential despotism, the problem to potential overreach, the problem to political ignorance, and the problem to emigration elimination. Let's pick political ignorance first. You will see why further on, which is solved by connecting experts on governance topics with the interested, related non-experts through one interconnected location on worldwide governance, and test those related interested non-experts through that same portal on competence of that governance topic prior to decision-making. Of course, letting the ones who understand decide and not the ones who remain too ignorant on the tested governance topic. That is how the problem of political ignorance is solved. And the solvency of this first addressed problem solves the others as well. The problematic despotism potential can only manifest itself from the combination of ignorance amongst the populace and hopelessness from powerlessness over one's own human needs or care receiving loved ones. We have covered both already in the aforementioned. Because when we have universal education, universally available, then anything related to the manifestation of despotism can be taught amongst us humanity in the truest sense of the term, thereby alleviating worldwide ignorance into worldwide enlightenment. And when every human individual is fully empowered in one's own human needs, through responsible stakeholder management, then no hopelessness can come to circumvent the rationales from the aforementioned Enlightenment either. Thus, when any serious sign of fall into such fake leadership comes to be, then the related experts can declare emergency if necessary, and through the sheer number of enlightened, empowered individuals, along with the principles of respect to ideas and true leadership, can corruption and incompetence simply not take hold to manifest further. The third one on organizational overreach is solved as well in the same way, as through true collective empowerment, not mere words on paper, becomes government and rest of society instrumental to the entire collective's human needs. To pick that old classic again from my message, all-sum win-win mentality of fundamentally honesty and competence can be reliably assured through true collective empowerment. Thereby any overreach to unreasonably benefit a few mentally ill individuals, systemically minimized, if not made entirely impossible. And the one on immigration elimination, which concerns what is called voting by feet, or in other words, expressing dissatisfaction through immigration, solved as well, though slightly differently. Because as you can imagine, this approach to the world constitution and by extent, Purocracy, does not eliminate mass immigration from dissatisfaction, but rather renders it redundant. Redundant because peoples are with the excellent governance system and with the excellent world constitution truly collectively empowered in mind and voice. The causes to eventually flee a country with, again, most fundamentally honesty and competence, thereby effectively systemically minimized. So, those were the criticisms to the world constitution. The inclusion of the three theories which make Purocracy systemically solving them. That goes to every criticism regarding the fundamental document. But what about hackers, you ask? Who may manipulate our own voice in our societal stake web? We will get to that in the next message. Final word. For now, the last part of this general message about the excellent world constitution. The creation and signage of the excellent world constitution is best done by us humanity as humanity, not just by a few amongst us such as world leaders and politicians, because there is no stronger, more powerful message and more respectful to our ancestors than to collectively decide for there to be no longer war amongst us, nor hunger, nor housing shortage, and no healthcare shortage, for there to be a truly peaceful and prospering world to ourselves, all of us, of humanity, by humanity, for humanity. Which of course starts with the foundation to that excellent world, which is the fundamental collective document upon which we decide. The excellent world constitution. First part A, and from there, part B. As you notice, is there an asterisk with part A? That is because to settle part B is best included a basic form of conflict resolution at part A to responsibly cover any conflict during the process. All right, so far the generals of the excellent world constitution. But now, the question becomes, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Purocracy or the world constitution? You will not find a biologist in me, so you will have to excuse me on the chicken one. But the other one? Purocracy and the world constitution come together at the same time, like a key comes with a bow and a blade at the same time, and will allow us to unlock mutually assured construction. That is, of course, if you share my message, which will allow us to forge that key. This was message 5 on the World Constitution. Thank you once again. Now let us head towards message 6. Final word.